Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you all doing today?
Very well. How are you?
I'm upright, and that's a good thing. I spent yesterday, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and hit the road at 6 to drive 3 hours to New York to go be at my granddaughter's first birthday party. And there were about 20 people there, and what they needed was Nana time. I'm Nana, and they needed help setting up the party, my son and daughter-in-law. So I got to be Nana for like 3.5 hours with my 3-year-old grandson and my 1-year-old granddaughter, and I'm exhausted today. So the fact that I am upright, because I had to drive 3 hours home too, right? So, and an hour and 20 minutes here this morning. So the fact that I'm upright is a walking miracle. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a couple of people here who may not be familiar with me, so I'm going to do like a very, very brief introduction. I used to be the spiritual leader of Unity of Central Massachusetts. I was here from July of 2018 until October of 2021. During that time, I was in ministerial school, and I was planning to be ordained as a minister here, and then some things happened in my family, and there were a couple of family illnesses where my brother, my daughter, and my dad were all sick with different things going on, and I needed to step down. So I stepped away for that year that's required, and I came back. Carmen and Arlene and the rest of the group were happy to extend an invitation to me, and now I come back once a month to talk to you about whatever comes out of my mouth, right? And I was ordained in 2022 by Jim Rosemergy, if you're familiar with Unity. He is the one that I found in Fort Myers, Florida, and he's the one that I got most of my training from early on. So who knows what we're going to talk about today? You all know that I bring a couple of notes with me, right? And then my mouth just goes in whatever direction I decide. I'm pretty sure that's Spirit speaking through me, but we'll see what happens today. So first I want to give you a couple of quotes. Albert Einstein said, "Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere." And Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "The world of reality has its limits, and the world of imagination is boundless." Right? So that's what we're going to talk about today, the power of imagination. First of all, we have, if you know a little bit about the 12 powers from Unity, Charles Fillmore wrote a lot of material on the 12 powers, and then other people picked it up, Paul Hasselbeck and other books. There's tons of books out there about the 12 powers, but they are, according to Mr. Fillmore, faith, strength, wisdom, love, power, imagination, understanding, will, order, zeal, elimination, and life. That's the 12. And it occurred to me that it might be a lot of fun working on combining them and seeing what you can do when you call forth more than just one power at a time, right? So as we were sitting here, I'm sitting here and I'm watching the videos, and we're singing songs, etc. And my imagination was going all over the place. Oh, I'm going to talk about this. Oh, no, wait, I'm going to talk about this, or I'm going to talk about that. Because everything that comes across our eyesight, that we come in contact with, we can go anywhere we want with it, right? That song that we just heard, and that woman, what joy she brought. She just was oozing lightness and joy. And we could go a lot of different places. That song probably brought up something for each one of us, but something a little bit different, right? And that's what the power of that imagination is. Imagination is the ability to envision, to dream, to conceptualize. Right? Anybody ever have any dreams? Right? We might call them goals. We might want to set some steps that we need to take in order to get to a particular goal. But it started out as a divine idea that we kind of grasped onto. And then we begin to start imagining what it might look like, right? So if you want to start your own business, let's say, right? You start to imagine what you want to sell, what you want to do, etc., and you decide that you want to go in a particular direction. Well, am I going to have a storefront? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? It can get very exciting, yes? And it can get very confusing, yes? Right? Because if you have a lot of ideas all popping in at the same time, then you kind of go wild. And that's where I think we can take the other 11 powers and maybe invite them into the party a little bit, right? For instance, if we have faith, faith is the ability to believe with confidence and to have conviction. So again, use that example of opening your own business. Yes, I do have faith in myself. Yes, I do believe that this is going to work, maybe, right? And then use the power of imagination together. Now, one thing about the powers that you have to remember, and I usually say this in almost every talk that I give, we all have them. I remember growing up as a little girl, and I remember one of the adults in my life saying, "Oh, she's not artistic. She can't draw a straight line with a ruler." And I kind of made that mean that I wasn't imaginative, that I wasn't creative, etc. So I'm here to remind you all that we all have these powers, including the people in Washington, D.C. Yes, yes, we forget that. I keep reminding myself, but we forget sometimes. Doesn't matter which side we're on. Truthfully, we all have it. It's all there, right? But it's a matter of, am I willing to call it forth? Am I willing to listen to what Spirit might be telling me when I'm in those moments of meditation and my power of imagination is coming forth? And am I going to be willing to go, yeah? Or am I going to shrink back and I can't do that, right? Sometimes we have this tendency to minimize what we are capable of doing. And I'm looking out at this sea of faces, and I know some of you better than others, but I can tell you that all I see is possibility in each and every one here. I feel it in the energy in the room, right? There's something very special about being together at this time and having this conversation, so to speak. I know it's a one-sided conversation right now, but we'll talk after the service. But to have this discussion about what we actually can tap into if we really want to. So imagination, that ability to envision, dream, conceptualize, it's about things that are not yet present to our five senses, right? So I want to tell you a story. It's out of the Bible. It's in John. The quote that I pulled out of this, John 1:50, is, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." Bartholomew, who was previously known as Nathaniel, was one of the apostles chosen by Jesus. But Jesus didn't walk up to him directly and pick him out. He picked out his brother, Philip, and then Philip went to Bartholomew and said, "Hey, come with me to Nazareth, because this guy's here, and I think you need to check this out," right? And when Bartholomew walked up to Jesus, Jesus said, "I saw you under the fig tree." That was his imagination. That's why Charles Fillmore picked Bartholomew as the apostle to represent the power of imagination, right? Because Jesus saw him under the fig tree, even though Jesus wasn't physically there. Have you ever had that happen? You imagine something and then all of a sudden you're in those circumstances. Deja vu is a good example, right? Or you think of someone and you're like, wow, I wonder how Joe is doing. Remember Joe, who used to come here when I was a spiritual leader here, young guy in veterinary school? Talked to him last week. I had been thinking about him for a couple of weeks, going, gee, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder how things are going for him. And my phone rang and there he was.
Is that the one with the rabbit?
No, that was Jason. Jason just got married, by the way. Yes. but Joe was his friend, the taller one with glasses. But they came together for a while. They were in vet school together, and it was just an awesome experience to see them here. And they both kind of moved away. But, I think that the power of imagination has a lot to do with those experiences. I really do. Now, I'm not going to go into very deep stuff and teach it. I have to be honest with you. When you give a 15 to 20 minute talk, it's very hard to go too deep because then you leave here all confused, right? Like I can't get to all of the material. So I try to spark some inquisitiveness inside of you. I try to spark your curiosity so that you can go home and do your homework. Jim Rosenberg, he used to call it your own work, OWN, own work, right? And so do with this whatever you want. You can't do this wrong. It's that's another one of my favorite sayings is I can't do this wrong, right? If you work with it this week, great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm coming back in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about it again, right? But the thing is, imagination is that powerful capacity to picture what could possibly be. And then hold on to that image and imagine what it could develop into and actually feeling the effects before it actually manifests itself. That's powerful. When you can sit in meditation and you can start to imagine, what would it feel like to be driven here by a limo driver? Joellen suggested that this morning because I was telling her about how I was tired and a little woozy, and not bad. I'm okay, folks. But I was telling her that, and she says, well, you need a driver, a really, really long limo, and you can sleep in the back. And I thought that would be great. So we'll start imagining that. Why not, right?
Let's go wild.
Let's go wild. Yes. Where did I hear that? Yeah. One of the greatest things about Unity teachings, Unity materials, things like that, is that we can play with this stuff. We can ask questions, we can experiment, and nobody's going to come to, or nobody should be coming to me saying I'm doing it wrong, right? They should say, oh, okay, and encourage, etc., because everybody is going to have a different experience. And why is that? Well, it's because we all have different filters, right? We've all gone through different things in our lives that have made it challenging to face certain situations versus others, right? So if someone has lost a close loved one and someone else hasn't really experienced that yet, it's hard to relate. So we all just kind of go through this together, but it's different for each, but the approach is the same, and the approach is open mind, open heart. No judgment. Oh. I mean, no self-judgment. Ooh. Right? How often do we say, oh, I'm not meditating right? I don't meditate because I can't do it right. You can't do it wrong. Right? But nobody ever told me that before until I got to Unity. And then I found out, oh, I can't do it wrong? Really? It took a while to understand that because, again, meditation looks different for each person. Because we're having this human experience. We are spiritual beings. We're in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws. I've heard this over and over again, having a human experience. And when I remember that, it is quite different for me than when I think I'm a human having a spiritual experience. Right? Because when I remember I'm a spiritual being, when I remember what the truth really is, then I can allow myself to experiment a little bit more. I can open myself up more. Have to have an open mind, have to have an open heart, have to be teachable. That's a weird word, right? I was never told growing up that, Kathleen, you should be teachable. What I was told was you obey and you do what I say. It was not be teachable, right? But I'm inviting you to play with this a little bit. Take these powers, combine them any which way you want, right? If you're going through a tough time, you may want to use your imagination to imagine how you could help another person and invite in the power of strength, because the power of strength is to help you persevere, right? Those of you who are caregivers, you know what I'm talking about, right? Imagine sitting under a fig tree. Your brother comes up to you and says, "Hey, listen, you got to check out this guy in Nazareth. I'm telling you, he's the bomb. You got to go check him out." And you walk up to the guy, and the guy says, "Yeah, I saw you under the fig tree." It's one of the best tools I ever learned in I became an LUT before I went to ministerial school. So in those classes, Carmen and I were in those classes together, and that was one of the best tools I ever found out. Is I could open up to the Bible, I could open up to any story, and I could put myself into the character in the story. So imagine being Bartholomew and being told, "Wow, I saw you under the fig tree."
Whoa.
Yeah, that's it. It really, if you allow yourself to really think about it, it's really whoa. You know, I'm not sure, I might have turned around and run away. I'm not sure, but it's powerful. It's powerful, you know. So what I'd like to do is I would like to lead you into a little bit of a longer meditation rather than a longer talk. I just want to kind of, you know, throw out some powers there, tell you what those abilities are, and then see if we can see where you go. And because we have access to it, but we have to use it, right? Sometimes we're not always willing to use it. So let's see where we go with this. So I'm going to invite you all now on Zoom, my friends on Zoom, and here, just get comfortable wherever you're seated, and just begin by taking